I can't believe the decade is coming to an end, so today I'm going to share with you guys my top 10 favorite comic book movies of the decade. Hey everybody, my name is Justin. I love to watch movies. If you guys love to watch movies too, you guys are in the right spot. Make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. Today I'll be sharing my top 10 favorite comic book movies of the decade. I'll be covering from 2010 to 2019. You may not agree with my list, but that's okay. Make sure to leave your list down below. And what are some of your favorite comic book movies of the decade? Before we do get started in this video, I'm going to share some honorable mentions, ones that were really good, but just did not make the cut. Films like Guardians of the Galaxy, Spider-Man Far From Home, Shazam, Wonder Woman, Thor Ragnarok, and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse all are great films, but just weren't enough for me to put them in my top 10. So with that being said, coming in at number 10 is Joker. This is the most recent comic book movie that I have seen, and Joaquin Phoenix gives such a good performance as the Joker. This is a movie that feels so much different compared to other comic book movies. I absolutely love the direction from Todd Phillips. It's very dark, it's very gritty, it's very depressing, but it absolutely works for this character. I love the setting and the tone for this movie. It's funny at times, but how they captured the pacing for this character and him slowly losing his mind is something that is absolutely crazy. Joker is easily one of my favorite movies of this year and is easily one of the best comic book movies I have seen this decade. There was so much that went into this movie, and I absolutely loved how they just brought this film to the big screen. It was a film that I wasn't sure what I was initially going to think about it, or if I even wanted to see a Joker movie, but it definitely paid off. Coming at number 9 is Captain America Winter Soldier. This is like a political thriller. It has a different approach to other Marvel films, and I think that makes it stand out from other Marvel films. Chris Evans is once again great as Steve Rogers, and I love that conflict he has in this movie against Bucky. Bucky is his friend, but he's turned into the Winter Soldier, and he's wreaking havoc, and he has to stop him. And he doesn't want to hurt him, but he also knows that he has to stop him before he hurts other people. And I just love that battle that Steve Rogers has to go through. It's a great story arc for the character. And I love how this movie kind of changed up that friendship that we got from the first movie, the first Avengers, and how it moved it forward. Coming in at number 9 is Captain America, the First Avenger. Now, I know that you guys do not like this movie. I've heard your guys' thoughts. I see you guys' rankings on most of my Marvel videos. Captain America, the First Avengers is towards the bottom of a lot of your guys' lists. And I can understand that this movie may be a little too corny. And there's those weird sequences where he has those plays. I understand that it's a bit off, but I love the style of this movie and how it set up that character, Steve Rogers. Steve Rogers is my favorite Marvel character right now, and I love just that initial setup for him and what he stands for. It definitely started off this character well. And this movie feels vintage. I love the costume designs, the set locations, how this movie looks. It fits for this character. But I can completely understand why someone may not like this film. I truly do. But for me, I absolutely love Captain America. It's always one of my favorite comic book movies. It's always one of my favorite Marvel films. And I know people will say, you know, this is a really bad list. I understand if you guys really might not like it, but this is my opinion. I really do enjoy this movie, so I really love it. It sits at number 8. Coming in at number 7 is Logan. Logan was a great payoff, a great tribute for Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. I think it was a great way to send off the character. It was very dark. It was a very emotional film. There was great performances from Hugh Jackman as well as Patrick Stewart. This movie stands out completely from other X-Men films and is easily the best X-Men film I have seen. There was just so much emotion running through this movie, so much brutal action. The choice to have an R rating was a very smart choice, and I could not see this movie being any other style because it probably would have not worked. For it being a dark, R-rated, violent movie, it fit this story. We finally got an R-rated movie for Wolverine because he is a brutal character, and I feel like he was being held back from most of the X-Men movies, but Logan was a chance for him to shine. It was a solo film for him that finally paid off. We didn't have those other Wolverine film movies. This is the prime example of how to do a solo movie and how to end a character. Coming at number 6 is The Dark Knight Rises. This was a great end to Christopher Nolan's Batman trilogy. Batman Begins was great, The Dark Knight was amazing, and The Dark Knight Rises is great. It is a really good film. I love Tom Hardy as Bane. It is one of the best villain portrayals of all time. I think it was such a good performance. I don't mind Anne Hathaway as Catwoman, but it's not my favorite villain performance. But I love how this movie was shot. It looks great. There's a lot of great action sequences between Batman and Bane. And when Bane broke Batman, it was truly epic. And the score is so loud and it just packs a punch and it works for this movie. I love the story. I love Joseph Gordon-Levitt in it. I love how Gotham was just feeling Bane and how he was just such a large threat. I love the story. The Dark Knight Rises is a great third film in a trilogy. It was a great way to end the movie. And of course, I would love to see Christopher Nolan do another Batman film. But if he never did another Batman film, this was a great way to end it. Coming at number 5 is The Avengers. This is the first Avengers film that was released in 2012, and it was a great way to bring all of these characters that had their solo films and some not solo films into the movie. It's a great movie. I remember seeing it at the midnight release and just being blown away that we saw the Avengers on the big screen. We have Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, Black Widow, Hawkeye, the Hulk, all in one movie, and it was truly epic. They've definitely made the Avengers films a lot better throughout the years besides Age of Ultron. But as they understood the group dynamics, it got better and better. But with the first Avengers movie, they had to work at the group. They just didn't work right away. And I thought that was a very realistic approach to the movie, that you're not going to have all these big characters with big egos all in one room and they're like, let's work together. My name is Captain America. Let's save the day. Well, maybe besides him, but everybody kind of argued with each other, and it made it for a realistic superhero film that they had to understand each other as a group to save the day against Loki. But I loved Avengers. I love the choice to bring back Loki. He's a great villain. Everybody loved Loki from then on out. The visuals were great. Overall, the first Avengers film is a really enjoyable movie. Coming at number 4 is Captain America Civil War. This is a movie that I did not want to happen, but it happened, and I think it was a movie that needed to happen, even though I didn't want it to happen. Having Iron Man and Captain America on different sides. They were in movies together. They felt like they were friends. You felt like they were friends, but then you had Civil War, and they had completely different opinions. And at that point in Marvel Cinematic Universe's amount of movies, this is a movie that I feel like they needed to do something a little bit different. You are having your solo films, you had your Avengers movies, you needed to kind of switch things up, not have that same formula. And Captain America Civil War definitely was that movie that needed to happen. You need to shake up the dynamics of the group to move things forward, to make movies like Infinity War and Endgame have that strong payoff. If it wasn't for Civil War, certain emotions in Endgame and Infinity War wouldn't have been felt and wouldn't have worked. So Captain America Civil War also brought in Black Panther and Spider-Man and had great introductions for them, and it had their movies later on really impactful. So I really loved the introduction of some of these characters, and you just felt that urgency for Iron Man and Captain America to solve things amongst themselves before they absolutely tear each other down. And that end fight sequence between the Winter Soldier and Captain America and Iron Man was truly emotional, and definitely packed a punch and was filmed so well. And I didn't want to see it. I wanted to see them just hug it out and talk it out. But it was a realistic approach, much like Avengers, that you're going to have your group kind of have different opinions and not agree with everything. And that's this movie. Coming at number 3 is Avengers Infinity War. This is the film that I think I've seen the most out of any comic book movie ever. I've seen Avengers Infinity War so many times. Before Endgame, I think I saw it like 10 times, like back to back on Netflix. And then I saw it a few times in theaters. I just watched this movie so much. And every single time I watched this movie, it got better and better. I love Infinity War. It is such a good movie, and this has such a quick pacing for such a long movie, but having everybody do different things on different parts of the world and different universes, it works. And Thanos is such a great villain. And he has this plan that you kind of listen to, and he explains it very well. It's not like, I'm going to destroy the world because I want to. He explains why, and they really did a good job of writing him as a villain, making him feel like a main character, not a supporting character in the movie. You felt like it was a movie about Thanos, and then you had everybody in here, and the end action sequence on Wakanda is truly amazing. And my favorite sequence is when Thor lands on Wakanda with Groot and Rocket, and everybody's just so excited to see Thor, and he's so mad and wants to kill Thanos. It's a moment that from the beginning you felt like was brewing up in Thor, and it was such a good payoff. It's an amazing movie, and I honestly regret, and I haven't mentioned this before, 2018 I named Roma as my favorite film of the year. But if I could go back, I would change it to Avengers Infinity War. I've watched this movie so many times since then, and Avengers Infinity War is my favorite film of 2018. I changed it on Letterboxd, but if I could go back, I would change it and make it my favorite film of 2018. Coming in at number 2 is Avengers Endgame. This is a movie that was building up for so many years and absolutely paid off. It's a movie that brought all of the Marvel characters together and had that really intense moment at the end where everybody came together and fought off against Thanos. It was epic. It was cinematic. You saw it in theaters and you wanted to scream and shout with everybody. It was truly an epic cinematic experience. And the time travel definitely worked as well. It was funny. You felt like this was the best version of every single character. I absolutely loved Hawkeye in here. Black Widow, Hulk, characters that haven't had that much to do in previous films, besides maybe Black Widow. They were the best in here. Iron Man was the best in this movie. Captain America was the best in this movie. All the main characters that were in Endgame, this was their best performance, and it was the best version of their character. And you also felt like Thanos was really good in here. You felt like he was still a large threat, even though he was like past Thanos. And when we all got together and they ended the movie, you felt like it was the right time to end certain storylines for certain characters. And it definitely was a payoff of 20 plus movies, 10 years. It definitely did work. And I was so happy with how this movie ended. If it was a bad film, oh, that would have been bad, and it would have been something very depressing, but it was truly good. But coming in at number 1 in my favorite comic book movie of the decade is Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, directed by Edgar Wright, is a movie that I could watch over and over and over again and never get bored with it. The little references to video games and comic books is just so fun to watch, and you could watch it and hear little chimes and little references. I love the little graphics on the screen. I love the characters, the ex-boyfriends, the fight sequences, how over the top this movie is and so stylish. Michael Cera is awkward in his role, but it's so sweet. There's just so much I love about Scott Pilgrim versus the World. And I've met the creator of it, and it's so fun to just talk about Scott Pilgrim. I've read all of the graphic novels. I've seen the movie so many times. There's just so much I love about Scott Pilgrim, and it's easily one of my favorite films of the decade. It's a cult classic. It didn't do that well in theaters once it was released, and I remember seeing it in theaters and thinking, wow, it's so good. And then I went back and read the comic books, the graphic novels, and I thought it was just so fun, and I played the video games for it. Scott Pilgrim has such a good pacing. The action sequences are great, and him fighting for Ramona is so sweet, and those great action sequences with Chris Evans as one of the ex-boyfriends. It's so fun to watch, and Scott Pilgrim will always be one of my favorite comic book movies, one of my favorite movies of all time. It's so fun, and as a person who loves video games and like Zelda and Mario and all that, you see those little references thrown throughout, and you could tell that the person who made the movie, Edgar Wright, had a care for bringing this movie to the big screen and making sure every single moment worked and every single moment was utilized very well. It's a fun movie, and I don't think it's talked about that much, but it deserves a status as my favorite comic book movie of the decade. I think these are the best comic book movies of the decade. Like I said, my list may not match up with your list, and that's okay. I am excited to see what are some of your favorite comic book movies of the decade. So let me know in the comment section down below. And make sure to hit that subscribe button for more up and coming best of the decade videos. I'll be covering horror films, comedies, romance films, animated movies, and the best as well. My name is JustinWatchesMovies, and you guys stay classy, YouTube.